Okay, hello everybody. I'm Dan Snyder, and I am one of the assistants to the chief reader, who you heard before from Dr. Benton Short. And I've been teaching human geography since it first came out in 2001. And I wanted to spend some time with you actually going over something that is often overlooked, but I think really, really important, and that's going over the actual exam instructions and what the students are going to see on the actual day of the exam. So again, in line with everybody else, kind of telling them what to expect, I'm going to show you some of the cover and what the actual exam section 1 looks like, some of the instructions, same thing with the section 2 and what that looks like, and some of the instructions. All right, so again, in preparation for this, we all want to make sure that our students are as prepared as possible. So we want to remove as many variables and many unknowns as possible. And that's why I say this is actually a very overlooked thing. You go over lots of questions with them, but how often do you actually show them what they're actually going to see on the day of the exam? That's why I like to say to make your preparation as game-like as possible. Of course, the game is going to be the exam on May 7th at 8 a.m. I'm reminded of a quote that failure to prepare is preparing to fail is basically what you're doing. So get them in line for this. So my recommendation would be just before the exam date. So maybe a day or two before, tell them, hey, here's what's actually going to be on the exam. And furthermore, keep in mind, many of the students who are taking this, many of your students, I'm sure, are freshmen. And so for them, this is the first time that they're actually going to see an AP exam. And many of my students have actually told me that the most nerve-wracking part of the exam wasn't so much taking the exam, but listening through all the instructions and making sure that they're doing all the right thing that they need to, because they weren't prepared for it. So here's what we think. And again, getting this information from College Board directly, but don't take this as absolute fact. We're going to say that these are what we think is everything here on the actual day of the exam. So when they come in, they sit down, the proctor will say they confirm that they have the correct exam. They'll look at that at the top. They have to remove shrink wrap, and there's two types of this thing. So just the outer one first, put the other one aside. They're going to have to remove an AP exam label. What I'm saying, these are things that they don't know about, so just kind of let them know. Do they need to memorize all these things? Of course not, but at least let them know this is going to happen. And they have to place that in the light blue box, and they have to take an AP ID label, which they'll use later on, and they put that in the gray box. And then they're going to hear a bunch of other instructions coming from the proctor. So they'll have to write the exam name, they'll have to write the exam form, the form code that will be on their actual exam booklet. They'll have to sign and print their name, put down the date, all these things. Thank you. And again, what we think the front cover of the exam booklet will look like. This is what the image here looks like. There's not much to be excited about, but it's nice for them to actually see it. And again, like I said, students do not open the booklet until they're told to do so. Okay, so then I said they should be given the following instructions, what we think that they're going to hear. They're going to be taking the multiple choice section. That will be 60 minutes. They're told to never discuss the content, even in breaks. Use a number 2 pencil only. We talked about this earlier, completely fill in the circles and one response per question. And like Kevin had said, make sure you answer all the questions. Don't leave anything blank. If they need to, erase completely. That's kind of obvious. And then, of course, the score is based solely on the number of questions answered correctly. So they're going to hear all these things as they go through. And when they open up that section 1, this is what we think that it will look like. There will be below those instructions, they actually will see the actual first page of the MCQs. But as you can see, it kind of reiterates the same things that you've already heard being talked about earlier tonight. And very quickly here, I did blur out here. So this is what the first page should look like. But of course, if it's blurred like that, that's a bad thing. And so one thing to also let the students know, never panic. That's like the worst thing to do on the day of the exam. If they have any issues, just raise their hand and the proctor will come over and help them out. And then we think this is what the last page of the section 1 exam booklet will look like. So again, you may not think that this is a big deal, like, okay, they should be able to deal with this. It is comforting for the students to walk them through this kind of a stage, like I said, a day or two before they're going to be taking that exam. All right, so what will they do toward the very end? So you know that they're going to get a 10-minute warning, or they should get the 10-minute warning. And then when the 10 minutes are up, they'll be told to stop, put their pencils down. They also will need to take out stickers. There's another thing that some students got freaked out about. There are these roll around stickers, and they're going to have to place it. It says right there on the exam, like place, the label here, the sticker here. And then they seal their exam 1 booklets. The exam proctor will then go and collect all the section 1 booklets. They'll collect the answer sheets, and they will be then told to take out the AP label sheet and the next shrink wrapped section 2, put it on their desk, and then next slide. Thank you. Then they should get a 10-minute break. Yay, okay. So they get that 10-minute break. That's when they can, you can go on to the next slide, it's fine. That's when they're going to be able to get a short little drink, a little snack, okay? But again, to remind them, they're not supposed to be talking about anything but the content of the exam itself. Okay, so when they come back, here's again what we think that they're going to hear. They'll be confirmed that they're at the right seat. They'll be told to use a pen with black or dark blue ink. They will be told to remove the shrink wrap from section 2. And then they'll be told to follow the additional instructions, writing their name down. They have to write down the date. They'll have to get a signature on that one. Again, the exam label, they'll need to put that on the exam. They'll need to take the AP label from this sheet and put that on the exam as well. And then, again, this is what we think the front cover of the Section 2 exam booklet will look like. Again, this is what the image will be. They're also told, again, do not open the booklets until they're told to do so. And again, the students should be given the following instructions. We think that they'll be taking the FRQ section. They'll have an hour and 15 minutes. They're responsible for their own pacing. This is why it's really good to practice this during there. We've heard that multiple times. Practice, practice, practice. Again, no credit for work in the questions booklet. Now, we know at the reading will actually get everything scanned. But back in the day, we used to get these booklets. Okay, we used to get these folders in there. I've seen it one time, and I really felt terrible for the student, but did see it one time where the student didn't write anything in the lined section, just wrote it in the white section where the questions were. And we were at a loss. There was nothing that we could do to give the student any points. So just go over that with them. It's not a hard thing to understand, but it could happen. So write the responses in there for response booklet. So what does that look like? All right, so the students should also be told to begin the response of each question at the top of a new page. And this one also, this might be the most important thing in my section here. They will be told, do not skip lines. Students freak out. They're like, what does that supposed to mean? Don't skip lines. What that really means is, like in English class, sometimes that they'll write a sentence and then they'll skip a line, or write another sentence, skip a line. They're told not to do this. There is another quick anecdote here about from another teacher who had a student who was top of, this was talking about a student that was like a guaranteed 5. He had written all 3 essays. And then in his mind, he remembered the don't skip lines, and he looked, and he had skipped some lines, like between his answer for A and answer for B or answer for C. So he crossed everything out and then went back and started rewriting everything feverishly. And of course, he didn't have time to finish all his essays, and time expired. So don't do that. Tell your students not to do that. Again, don't panic. What this really is meaning is, okay, they're telling them not to skip lines in between answers. What happens if they do? So in other words, if we're looking at the responses, and between their answer for A and answer for B, there's 2 or 3 lines. We don't do anything to score it, okay? So tell them not to panic. They're just telling them this so that they don't run out of space. That's all they're trying to do. So, but that's one thing I have to remind my students, like, you'll hear them say don't skip lines. Don't really worry about that. We score it no matter what. And this is what we think the inside of the Section 2 booklet will look like. And after these instructions, they will see the FRQs. And then, of course, this is what that will look like. After that page is when we will see the first FRQ, then the second, then the third. And just to show you as well, this is basically what they're going to see. They're going to have the question booklet, and they're going to have a response booklet. And it will look something like this. Again, what we think it will look like. And they should be instructed to bubble in which question they are answering on each page. Remember, they can go in any order. So if they look at question 2 and they really like that one, they could answer that first. We just want them to bubble in the correct bubble. And what happens if they, oops, I misbubbled? Well, if you fill in the wrong circle, just put an X on it. That's what they're told to do. And if they run out of space on there, which can sometimes happen, raise their hand and they can be given some new paper. Another thing is just to give you guys also some calmness at the reading. What happens if a student bubbles in question 2, but they're actually answering question 3 or whatever combination? The answer is, we train our readers that they will see and they'll take a look. For example, they're not like, wait a second, this is not question 2. They'll flag it, and then we will make sure that it gets scored correctly. But please remind your students to do us a favor and make sure they bubble in as accurately as they can. The other thing is also, please label. Tell them, label A, label B, label C. There's no other tricks. We score them as we see them. So just let them know that we have their best interest at heart. All right, and this is what we think the last page of the section 2 pre-response booklet will look like. Very much kind of like the first one. And if you can go to this, I think one more slide. Next one, yes. So they'll be given 10-minute warning. Again, they're responsible for their own pacing. They'll be told to stop working when time is up. The exam proctor will then collect the booklets. They'll be told never to discuss those pre-response questions until they actually are shown. Usually within about 2 days, they should be up on the website. Then they can talk about it all they want. And then also that they'll be told that their exam should be available sometime online in July. Then they are dismissed, and then the party can start. They can relax, and then they can go have a good time. So, and then they can go thank you for being such a wonderful teacher and preparing them for the exam.